episode 10 already. Better make this one special. And about the Evil Dead. And I'm about to try and unite all the Evil Dead screen media in one universe, including the fourth one in Ash vs. Evil Dead, because I fucking can. And yes, I said fourth one because it's not a fucking remake. So, first up, how can I fix the basic continuity issues between them? Simple, there's more than one Book of the Dead. There's a book for Evil Dead 1, also called the Notorum de Monto, which was found in an ancient Kandarian ruin by the Nobis and later burned by Ash. And there's the Army of Darkness book, also called the Necronomicon Ex Mortis. Now these are not and cannot be the same book. Apart from the fact that they look totally different and they have different names, the Nobis found the Evil Dead 1 book in a ruin, untouched for thousands of years, while the Army of Darkness book is hanging out in a weirdly desertish medieval England in the 12th century. Now, I will admit that they never state the Evil Dead 1 book was left for thousands of years in the Kandarian ruin, but I definitely got that impression from the film. And I will admit that they never state that Army of Darkness is set in England, but the knights are English and the ones to the north that they hate are all Scottish. And in the Ash Over Sleeps ending, he ends up in post-apocalyptic England. Where else is it set? Anyway, where does Evil Dead 4 and Ash vs. Evil Dead fit in? Well, 4 is clearly using the Evil Dead 1 book, it's even got the same name. And Ash vs. Evil Dead is using the Army of Darkness book. I'm thinking Ash probably brought it with him after the film. But the Evil Dead 1 book was destroyed, you said it yourself. Yes, I did say that, me. But a supernatural book of evil, world-ending power wouldn't be so easily killed. It just needed a few decades to regain its power. But the book from 4 looks totally different. Yes, and here's where I turn my evidence that 1 and Army of Darkness's books are different partly because they look different on its fucking head. In Evil Dead 4, the book has spent the past few decades remaking itself. But where did it get the strength? It's a powerful monster in the form of a book, so I think it'd feed on the fear, hatred and superstition of those around it while it's reforming. Its pages are filled with the half-remembered nightmares of the people in the local area. The Evil Dead 4 book is covered in really cheesy-looking satanic panic stuff because it formed itself based on the subconscious of people in rural Tennessee starting in the early 80s. The book in 1 looked weird and indecipherable. It looked like it could have been created by some Lovecraftian civilization. Not just a prop, but the weird scribblings and drawings, while the Army of Darkness book looks like it was filled with slightly more medieval-looking nightmares. In short, the books are specialised for different times, and I think every time the evil force suffers a monumental setback and one of its books are destroyed, it remakes itself for the time it was defeated, ready to more efficiently defeat its new enemy. So why are there 2 books? Mainly because there physically can't be one. The Nobis found the book in the ancient Kandarian ruin, while the other book was in use in the Middle Ages. But why 2? 2's not a mystic number, that's arbitrary. And yeah, I agree. So I think there's more likely 3 of them. 3 is a common mystic number. Like in Army of Darkness, 3 books of the dead are represented when Ash has to find the right one. The other 2 aren't actual books, but representations of them. So I think there's likely 3 of them. 3 books, just like an unholy Trinity. And like the Trinity, the 3 are one in a mystical way that doesn't actually make sense, but we collectively pretend it does. 3, it fucking fits. And just for the record, I don't think we've come across the 3rd book in the series. Yet. But how can 4 and Ash vs. Evil Dead be in the same continuity? The cabin looks totally different in both. Well, that's easy. Ash is being fucked with in Ash vs. Evil Dead. After Evil Dead 2, the cabin went on, was cleaned out, reused, renovated, and eventually became the cabin in 4. While the one in the TV show is the same building, and the Unleashed Evil is fucking with Ash by making it look exactly like he remembers it. You know, exactly the sort of weird, cruel shit that it's been doing since day 1. I'm just surprised that Barbager wasn't resurrected to try and seduce them in the forest. The Ash vs. Evil Dead cabin can't be authentic because the evil force doesn't stay at full power for extended periods of time. In 1, the Nobis raised the force and died, but the force had returned to background levels of evil until the tape was played again. Later in 1, the evil was severely damaged by the loss of the book, and at the end of 2, the evil was pulled into the portal. It can't have stayed around the cabin isolating it for decades because A, that'd be pointless, and B, that's clearly not how it works. And even if the cabin had been isolated by the evil, it had still been abandoned and shit breaks down after a few decades. Even if you don't accept my idea that 4 is the true cabin, you still have to admit that the cabin in Ash vs. Evil Dead has to be somewhat fake and recreated. Because there's no way it still looks like that 30 years later. Yeah, my theory's not perfect, and there is the odd continuity snarl, such as when we see the Nobis finding the Army of Darkness book in 2. In fact, there's probably too many to list, so just mention them in the comments. Just remember, the Evil Dead series has continuity issues built into its very fabric because they didn't have the right to reuse footage from the previous movies. Add to that the issues with both Army of Darkness endings, which you can get round by saying one's a dream before he wakes up to the other. Anyway, you've got the issues with that, 4 in the TV show, and I think all in all I've made a fair attempt at doing the impossible and fixing Evil Dead continuity.